From censored files to clear evidence, this is Redacted Realms.
From an economic empire to a plummeting yen without breaks, what happened to Japan? On August 9, 1945, a plutonium bomb devastated the city of Nagasaki, just 3 days after Hiroshima suffered an American uranium bomb.
Fascist Japan surrendered, World War II ended, and the remain of Japan was post-war level.
Yet, this country astounded the world when, within just 23 years,
Japan transformed from a middle-income country to a very high-income one, rising to become the world's second-largest economy, surpassing giants like France, Germany, and the United Kingdom.
But unexpectedly and surprisingly, Japan was overtaken by China in 2010 and held the third position until 2022. As economy slipped further to become the world. So, what really happened to this country?
What reasons allowed a country to develop at a dizzying speed and then gradually decline uncontrollably?
Let's explore with DHT.
Before World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union fought together as comrades against Axis powers. However, the relationship between these two countries was like a thorn waiting to dig deeper.
Americans had long been wary of Soviet communism and concerned about the brutal, bloodthirsty rule of Russian leader Joseph Stalin. The Soviet Union, meanwhile,
was agitated by America's decades-long refusal to treat it as a legitimate part of the international community, as well as the delayed entry into World War II, which led to the deaths of tens of millions of Russians.
And the end of World War II became the trigger for the Cold War.
The vision of a Red Asia under the communist flag became an American obsession when Mao Zedong succeeded in the Chinese Revolution. This event ignited like a flame, quickly spreading to the Korean peninsula under Kim Il-sung's leadership. The Korean War erupted, becoming the hotspot of the Cold War and forcing the U.S. to intervene. However, the vast geographical distance and logistical constraints posed significant challenges to the U.S. military, raising questions about America's ability to maintain its superpower status amid the rise of communist powers. Thus, the U.S. established a significant presence in Japan to curb Soviet expansion in the Pacific. But in return, the price America paid was truly steep. That is, the U.S. agreed to lower exchange rates and facilitated Japanese goods access to the market. Seizing this golden opportunity, Takeda Hayato quickly proposed a bold economic development strategy. He focused on improving product quality, especially in core industries like shipbuilding, chemicals, and electronics.
Additionally, Takeda encouraged Japanese companies to form tight alliances to enhance competitiveness and counter foreign rivals. This structure is called Keiretsu, a collaboration among manufacturers, suppliers, distributors, and banks. Keiretsu ensured its members avoided cutthroat competition and easily accessed capital support from banks. Large corporations often signed long-term contracts of 20 to 30 years with supplier distribution partners, and if any member faced financial trouble, banks provided special short-term liquidity to keep operations on track.
A prime example is Mitsubishi, considered the largest and most famous in Japan's Keiretsu network. The Bank of Tokyo Mitsubishi sits at the top of the Keiretsu, with Mitsubishi Motors and Mitsubishi Trust and banking as key parts of the core group.
Next is Meiji Life Insurance, providing insurance for all group members.
Mitsubishi Corporation is a trading company for Mitsubishi. As a result, the country's total export value reached $22.03 billion. 15 years later, it increased ninefold to $194.35 billion. The rise of Japanese brands like Sony, Nintendo, and Toyota transformed the global economic landscape. The success of these products not only made Japan an industrial powerhouse but also improved people's quality of life. With a strong economic foundation, Japanese corporations confidently expanded globally, executing M&A deals with prominent American brands and even defeating U.S. companies on their home turf.
This was nothing short of an insult to American pride. Thus, from neighborhoods to politicians and ordinary citizens, people turned to smashing Japanese branded products.
At this point, the administration of U.S. President Ronald Reagan began to realize its mistake.
that the decision to devalue the yen 3 decades earlier was like letting a snake bite the whole chicken. And so, America was forced to step in. The meeting of the Plaza Hotel in New York, attended by top economic powers, became a forum for countries to find solutions to rebalance trade and help the U.S. recover from the crisis. The decades-long party was over. Pressure from the U.S. forced Japan to appreciate the yen. However, this was also a risky decision for the country's export industry. To better understand this impact, the following example will surely show you. Suppose a Toyota Camry costs 1,000 yen in Japan. At that time, the exchange rate between yen and US dollars was 260 yen per dollar. Therefore, the price of the Toyota Camry in US dollars would be $57,500. By 1989, the exchange rate at that time was $1 for 126 yen. Assuming the Toyota Camry maintained its price of 1,500,000 yen in Japan, when exported to the US market, it would cost about $120,000. Thus, in just 4 years, the price of a Japanese car had tripled by the time it reached American consumers. And not just cars, all products bearing the Made in Japan brand faced a similar situation, causing Japan's exports to plummet uncontrollably. The Bank of Japan placed a bet on a risky gamble by deciding to lower interest rates to revive the economy. They hoped that easing monetary policy would stimulate businesses to invest in innovation. However, unfortunately, the result was completely opposite to expectation. Instead of flowing into production projects, most of the loaned money went into the real estate market. This decision not only caused serious consequences for the Japanese economy, but also marked the beginning of a prolonged series of. At its peak, in Tokyo's Ginza district, 1 square meter was priced at $1.5 million. For example, the Tokyo Imperial Palace, covering 1.15 square kilometers, was valued at $881 million. A price comparable to the total value of real estate in the U.S. state of California. So why real estate? Tokyo, the financial center, was already a bustling city and on a development trajectory. Settling here was the dream of many people. High housing demand, low supply. Therefore, real estate prices had risen. Lower bank interest rates allowed those borrowing against land to thrive like fish in water. The higher land prices rose, the more they could borrow. Banks also favored this because they could sell the land for much more than a loan amount. In a vicious cycle, people borrowed from banks to buy houses, banks sold land, people bought land, bought houses. The real estate bubble kept inflating until it reached a size that could no longer be contained. By 1991, Japan, a country with an area only 1/26th of the United States, had real estate values 5 times higher. Any Japanese person who owned any piece of land was like holding a goose that laid golden eggs. Those who were quick-witted and skilled in land trading became wealthy rapidly. The government gained an important revenue source from land transfer transactions to develop infrastructure and public services. Japanese banks made huge profits from lending activities. Even by the early 1990s, Japan's real estate boom helped 5 of its banks become the highest valued globally. But dreams, however beautiful, must eventually come to an end. Large corporations, like Japan's business giants, particularly the Keiretsu groups, spared no expense pouring money. In the short span of 5 years from 1985 to 1990, they spent 2.8 trillion yen on real estate, 9 times more than the previous 5 years. In just 3 years, from 1986 to 1988, the total real estate value of Japanese companies increased by $2.8 trillion. This figure equaled Japan's entire GDP during that period. To cool down the increasingly heated land fever, the Bank of Japan decided to aggressively raise interest rates. From 2.5% at the end of 1989, interest rates soared to 6% in 1990. Imagine a strong flowing faucet. When you turn it down, the water flow weakens. Similarly, when interest rates rose, borrowing money to invest in real estate became much more expensive. This left many people unable to afford participating in the game anymore. Finally, the real estate bubble burst, causing an economic tsunami that devastated all of Japan. To better visualize, imagine you are one of the participants in this game. You mortgage a piece of land with an appraised value of 10 million yen, and the bank loans you 8 million yen. But this 10 million yen is the amount appraised before the bubble burst. Therefore, the real value of the land is much lower than this 10 million figure. When the real estate bubble burst, the land's appraised value dropped from 10 million to 6 million, then to 4 million, and continued to fall further. Thus, the bank made a huge mistake by lending 8 million yen in exchange for collateral worth less than half. To recover massive debts, banks were forced to auction off mortgage assets at dirt cheap prices. Houses and lands that were once the pride of many families now lay in ruins. Countless Japanese people lost their jobs. Businesses, from large corporations to small shops, closed one after another. The statistics are staggering. Over 200,000 businesses went bankrupt in just one decade. A young, ambitious generation entered the labor market during its most difficult period. They are called the lost generation, as stable jobs with attractive salaries became increasingly scarce. Instead, they had to take on temporary jobs with unstable incomes. Many young people have overworked to make ends meet, while family burdens weigh heavily on their shoulders. There are even those who have to borrow to cover daily living expenses. This is also one of the reasons why Japan currently has an aging trend as it does now. Just one mistaken policy by the central bank affected an entire consumption habit of Japanese society. Once broken, it is difficult to salvage. While ordinary people and small businesses are struggling to survive, the Keiretsu conglomerates, the large ships of the Japanese economy, are also not how you eat. The complex and tightly knit network of relationships, once the strength of Keiretsu, has now become a burden. But contracts spanning decades, the once symbols of stability, have now become major obstacles to innovation. Startups with breakthrough ideas find it hard to break into these closed networks. We are sorry, your technology is very good, but I cannot abandon the partners who have been with me for the past 30 years. This is the answer many startups receive. Keiretsu, with their long-term commitments, have inadvertently missed opportunities to collaborate with dynamic, flexible companies, making the Japanese economy, when the limitations of this economic model become clearly, finding a solution to revive the economy becomes more difficult than ever. Yet difficulties pile upon difficulties. Unfavorable timing, unfavorable condition. The Fukushima disaster in 2011, like a deep cut into the Japanese economy, once again completely overturned the situation. The earthquake and tsunami not only claimed thousands of lives but also severely damaged production facilities in the northeast region, which is the lifeblood of Japanese industry. To ensure continuous production and minimize losses, Japanese businesses were forced to shift their supply chains to Southeast Asian countries and other regions. This decision, though urgent, inadvertently created a new cycle. Japan's export volume continued to decline, followed by increasing pressure for the yen to depreciate. Currently, Japanese companies continue to expand operations overseas, seeing it as an opportunity for growth. However, once such production systems are established, the balance between supply and demand will take time to change, leading to capital flowing out of Japan. It can no longer resist standing still. On March 19, 2024, the Bank of Japan decided to raise interest rates to 0.1%. But in reality, the interest rate gap between Japan's still ultra-low interest rates and the US's highest interest rates in 23 years of age. The yen is still facing significant depreciation. Currently, US interest rates are around 5.25% to 5.5%. So why does the yen continue to plummet into the abyss like this? As the currency with the lowest interest rates among the G10, this makes the yen an ideal target for carry trade activities. Simply put, this is how it works. Borrow in a low interest rate currency, then sell it to buy a higher interest rate currency. This money can then be saved or invested. However, another move is no different from a self-inflicted blow by this. When on April 26, the BOJ announced it would keep interest rates stable, signaling that rate hikes would not occur. This triggered a wave of yen selling, adding more pressure on the currency. This very selling wave also caused the yen to fall to 160 yen per USD for the first time since 1990. A weak domestic currency increases import costs, but it also has its positive aspects. The yen's depreciation helps boost the production and export of machinery, equipment, and automobiles. Other Japanese products also saw strong growth, including chip manufacturing equipment and electronic components. Products made in Japan like cars from Toyota, Honda, and Nissan become more competitive in the international market. Statistics show that Japan's export volume reached a new record in 2023, with an impressive growth of 3.7%, reaching 102.9 trillion yen, marking the first time Japan's export volume exceeded 100 trillion yen in the third consecutive year of record highs. For tourists, it is even more exciting. On July 19, the Japanese government forecast that the country could welcome a record 35 million tourists in 2024. Additionally, tourism spending in Japan also reached an all-time high, approximately 1 trillion yen, equivalent to 50 billion yen. Tourist arrivals to Japan in the first half of this year increased by 65.9%. Specifically, in June alone, tourist arrivals to Japan set a new record with 3.13 million visitors. This marks the fourth consecutive month exceeding 3 million. One reason is the depreciation of the yen, allowing tourists to purchase more. Furthermore, the quality of Japan's services and products. However, these are just a bright spot in Japan's gloomy economic picture. So, that's the impact of the yen on Japan, but what about Asia? With the yen weakening, regional competitors like South Korea and China feel threatened. Their products become less competitive in the international market, affecting business revenue and profits. This raises concerns about the risk of a covert currency war erupting in Asia. Investors are beginning to worry that countries in the region will try to devalue their currencies to maintain competitive advantages. If this happens, the yen will not be the only victim. Other regional currencies could also be dragged down and depreciate, causing unpredictable consequences for the Asian economy. However, economic experts also offer optimistic. They believe Asian countries are now better prepared to handle economic shocks compared to the 1997 financial crisis. Countries have ample foreign exchange reserves, more stable financial markets, and have implemented many reforms to strengthen economic. Therefore, there are no signs yet that a similar financial crisis to 1997 will repeat. For Vietnam, the depreciation of the yen also brings many difficulties. Due to the falling yen exchange rate, when Japanese customers pay for service contracts from Vietnam in yen instead of USD, the revenue converted into Vietnamese dong decreases. Meanwhile, business costs remain unchanged or even increase, leading to narrowed profit margins. For families with relatives working as migrant laborers in Japan, a living witness shared. When my child went abroad, the exchange rate was about 180 yen to one United States dollar. Now it has dropped to over 1. The depreciation of the yen has a certain impact on the value of remittances sent to Vietnam. If before, they sent about $15 to $17 million per month, now it's only $11 to $12 million. From this, we can see the reasons why Japan, once an economic empire, is now in an unstoppable decline. There are both internal causes and external influences. However, there are still bright spots in a gloomy economic picture of the land of the rising sun. In your opinion, in the future, can Japan rise again and once more become an economic powerhouse? Please leave a comment below to let Did know your thoughts. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and see you again. Subscribe to the Redacted Realms channel to watch the latest videos.
If this file opened your eyes, subscribe and open the next case.